Yo, what up? This is the Center Hub. I'm here with Julian and Zach. Today we are kind of reacting to the draft lottery results as well as doing a little mock draft. It is I don't know, for me, I'm in Pacific time or yeah, Pacific time. It's 4:45 for me, so like, 7:45-ish on the East Coast. So we're about like, 30 minutes about after like the results. What are your guys' first thoughts, feelings? Julian, obviously, you're the only one here with any sort of fan ties to the lottery results. I guess we'll start with you.
Well, I mean, in regards to my team, I'm pretty happy. For those of you who didn't get to watch the lottery, they kind of pulled a fast one over on us where they said that it looked like the Sixers weren't going to get their pick. And then I saw that at seven, they called the Pelicans, and I was like, oh, wait, this is cool. We're good. Jumped into the top four. We're at three here. So. The tank, I guess, was worth it. Depending on which one of these guys we end up with. I would have loved to get Cooper Flagg, obviously, but turns out you can make a really, really bad trade and still end up with the best player in the draft class.
Yeah, for real. Zach, what are kind of some of your takeaways?
As a fan of a Western Conference team, this is not awesome with a conference that's already like just so deep and like awesome. And the top two picks uh are going to the West this year. That was exactly what I was not hoping was going to happen. And the Mavericks with a 1.8% chance of winning get it. Brutal. Nico Harrison gets completely bailed out with this. It's crazy. This is the maybe the craziest single season I've ever seen before. Like you make that trade and then you get the first overall pick with those odds. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, for real. I definitely have similar sentiments to you, Zach. It was pretty astonishing to see. Obviously, it's such a small chance of them winning, and then with the events that have also transpired with their franchise this year, it's definitely an interesting situation. Um, I think we'll go in the order that we just went. So we'll have Julian go first. Just kidding. I'm gonna let you pick with the Sixers. We're gonna have Zach go, and then we're gonna go with Julian, and then we'll go me. Zach, do you want to start off here with Dallas at the number one overall pick?
Yeah, they get Cooper Flagg, one of the better prospects of the last, long time. I mean, was arguably the best player in college basketball last season, the best player in a one-seeded Duke roster. Um, really liked what I saw on the offensive end this year for him, like just as, a creator in the mid-range and ability like just to score from everywhere and pass for others. This is just a guy that impacts winning at like every level of basketball on both ends of the court. Dallas is going to be unbelievable defensively next year with, I mean, if you're starting Anthony Davis at the four next to Lively and then Flagg, that's insane. I mean, Flagg's going to be a starter for this team like day one. I think he's going to have a high impact. Um, Great for him to go to this place because I think he can really reach his potential in Dallas with a really good roster. But I mean, yeah, Dallas gets bailed here.
Yeah, for real. I mean, I think it's definitely like one of the better outcomes for Flag. I think the teams that got the top three picks were probably the best outcomes of this lottery for him in terms of landing with the team that probably maximized his potential, like Zach said. Which is could be like a, you know, the guy on a championship contender, especially with what we saw down the stretch at Duke. Um, it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. I mean, is this pick something that before we move on, is this with Dallas? I mean, they just traded Luca, so I mean, no asset really is untouchable. Obviously, they've demonstrated that. And some of the news in the last 2 days, Zach, what is the likelihood you think this pick gets traded in some capacity, or even one of these top two picks get traded?
Well, the Dallas pick should not be getting traded. I mean, we're talking about Nico Harrison here, so maybe the odds are a little bit different than we like to expect. But I mean, you have the ability to reset your timeline completely with an 18-year-old that is going to be 18 for the first 2 months of his career and could potentially be a legit franchise player. Not opting to do that would be absolutely ridiculous. Even if like we saw the Giannis stuff today, I don't think you should go get Giannis with this pick. I think you have to keep this core younger with where it is. He fits the lively timeline. And then some other younger guys in this roster, like they completely reset their winning timeline with this.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. Julian?
It's just unbelievable, and I'm
Yeah.
so mad. But I'm excited for Flag. He's just a winner, man, and I think he's the kind of kid you want in your organization at the end of the day. So Dallas is very, very lucky to have a prospect of his caliber, and I think that's you guys have pretty much summed everything else up that I could say about him.
Yeah. I'm up with San Antonio here at number two. This is an interesting spot for them, obviously moving up as well. And then having that additional lottery pick later on at 14. I think here you got to really just go best player available if you're San Antonio. And I think in a lot of ways for them, that's probably going Dylan Harper. I think that he probably pairs really nicely with Steph Castle and some of the other players in their core. Obviously, Victor Wembanyama being a player that they want to, kind of. Um, we talked a lot about like maximizing your championship window there with Flag. It's kind of the similar conversation with Wembanyama, and I think you got to put dynamic guards around him, and they've opted to do that at the top of the last two classes. And I'm excited to see what this backcourt will look like. The Spurs are probably, besides obviously Dallas, the Spurs are, it kind of goes with saying, getting moving up to the second pick, but for them, it's crucial. And I think we'll say the similar things about Philadelphia with where they're at in their core.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't be surprised if San Antonio traded down a few spots. Um, I also wouldn't be surprised, like you were talking about earlier, like they're a prime candidate to package these two lottery picks, Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, maybe even De'Aaron Fox, and go get Giannis.
Oh,
Uh,
don't do that to me.
I would not be surprised if San Antonio, I think, is probably going to be looking at options for how can we maximize the value of, the little bounce that we got here. But if they are
I
keeping the
100%
pick,
agree. I think they're probably the team out of the two in terms of like Dallas or San Antonio are much more likely to make a move to try and maybe not pick this high in the draft. I think Harper's obviously still a really strong prospect and would add a lot to their depth. I think Fox obviously is a great player. You just want another guard there. I think would be awesome.
him and Castle and Wemby would be an absolutely menacing trio for years to come if
Hmm.
that's what they decide to do and
Man.
keep the pick.
Yeah, I think this could this is the right pick. This is what they should do. Or if they just want to trade for a star, but like this could create some like legit controversy in a few years because how could you start Fox, Harper, and Castle together with Castle really wanting to play the point guard position? Fox kind of has to have the ball in his hands a lot. Harper's a much better on-ball player as well. I can't see those three coexisting beyond maybe the first 2 years because you can kind of be like, okay, Harper, you're a rookie, you're coming off the bench. How long can you do that though before he gets good enough to where, okay, this guy can't come off the bench? Um, because I would probably project him to be better than Stephon Castle in the future if I had to guess. Um, would be my slight guess here, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I think one of those three guys is going to have to be moved on, or they're just going to trade this pick.
I could see this pick getting traded for Giannis. I mean, really, honestly, I think he's probably Giannis is probably a better fit with San Antonio than most of these options. I don't know if he's a better fit with Houston. I don't know if he's a better fit with even a team like Dallas. So it'll be interesting to see how this plans out. Obviously, we're not doing any trades, but this would be a pick that probably is going to be looked at to be moved. Julian, you're up with the 76ers. Another one
Sixers
of the
time.
winners of the night.
So if it loads for me here. Um, I was debating picking VJ Edgecombe, who's probably the best player available. But I've been talking about it for a while. I just think Ace Bailey in Philly makes so much sense. Um, in terms of letting him develop alongside Embiid and Paul George next year. And I think if you draft VJ, especially with how well McCain played this year, I think the backcourt gets a little bit small for my liking, just like as a whole. And it's a little bit awkward. I really do believe that I think Ace can maximize his potential in Philadelphia. So I'm going to take Ace Bailey. Just dynamic scorer. If you're bringing him here, you don't need him to initiate very much. You can kind of just let him shoot, play defense, maybe make the occasional play if his handle tightens up a bit, but I just think as a two-way player and as another scorer, especially as a guy who doesn't need to have the ball in his hands to be a prolific scorer, Ace can be phenomenal playing next to Maxey and PG and Embiid.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. I mean, yeah, like the Edgecombe stuff, I think it would have been a good pick as well. But then you have the questions about, you have so many guards, like, is there an odd man out at some point there? But I mean, either pick makes sense from a standpoint of like, I think the Sixers just need like a good NBA athlete to come into the room more so because we've seen the Paul George decline and like the Embiid stuff, and then you don't have the most athletic guards in the world. Um, I think, and then Bailey can just play off the basketball with Embiid and, George and Maxey demanding all these touches. Edgecombe would have done the same thing probably. But he's just a bigger option as well, more positional size. And I really like some of the rebounding and like, some of the defensive stuff as well. But yeah, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be interesting to see, kind of how his offensive game develops. I think that's a safe spot for him, to kind of be reined in offensively. He never is going to be used as bailout guy. You know what I mean? There's just better players on the court than him. So I like it. And I think it gets tends to be overblown with his role at Rutgers, how he can score without the ball. I think like Julian mentioned, and his defensive potential, I think was kind of overlooked a little bit throughout most of this cycle in terms of positive draft qualities. Because I think it's definitely up there, and it's kept him. Obviously, he's number three on no ceilings board. He's not that quite that high for me, but I like his fit with Philly. I would be okay with him being taken there for sure.
Yeah, I
Zach, you're
would.
up with Charlotte.
He's
Or
he's
sorry, go.
he is. I would say he is five on my board. So I have two players above him, but
Mhm.
anyway.
Yeah, with the Hornets, I mean, it would have been great for them to get a top pick for their sake. But I think this is a phenomenal fit. I've talked about this so many times with if the Hornets end up falling, there's a perfect fit for them, and it's VJ Edgecombe. Just to get a guy who can be a primary on-ball defender next to LaMelo Ball, where that's legit concern for him. Just get a good defender in the room is kind of what they need. They don't have a lot of those. But somebody who can also play off the basketball as a shooter, rim finisher, all that stuff, with some secondary ball handling ability is great. Like Edgecombe's not going to demand a ton of touches, and that's probably something that, if LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller on your team, which if things go right for Lamelo and Brandon Miller in the next few years, like you can convince me that that's a good playoff one and two, and then Edgecombe being your third guy, and I think he complements those guys well as a really good defender, and then his ability to be off the basketball offensively. Um, but yeah, I think this is a perfect fit.
Yeah, I agree. I would have liked this. This is the fit I would have liked that too for Charlotte. To give you some perspective. I'm really high on Edgecombe. I think his defensive potential is, near the top of this class. And I think when you're looking for at a lot of these teams that are, not as deep or as strong as the teams that all landed in the top three, you're looking at needing to add a lot of defense. So, I like the pick of Edgecombe here. Waiting on Julian's computer to load.
Yeah, nothing to add for me. Best player on the board.
Now the Jazz, who got absolutely screwed.
Yeah, for real. This is definitely one of the tough um outcomes of this lottery. Um
I mean,
I mean,
the worst two teams got screwed by like four
yeah.
spots.
Yeah, I know. I feel so bad for Washington, man.
Like Washington, like ethically tanked. Like they played their guys throughout most of the year. They just don't. They have a horrible roster, obviously, but like they didn't like sit dudes a ton until maybe at the end with like maybe some Marcus. But they were playing Chris Middleton.
Yeah. I mean it's tough, but I mean it's the draft lottery. It's kind of how these things can
Happens.
shake out at times. And it's brutal, but you have to, you have a good pick here at five. I like this class in terms of trying to add starting value players to your roster. I think this class is pretty deep in that area. And I think at the top of that tier for me is Kasparas Jakucionis. Combo guard from Illinois. Had a dynamic start to the year. Looked to me to be one of the best three prospects in this class. I've toned down a little bit on him, as most people have, but I think that still the shooting profile, playmaking profile, and even just his physical tools. All screams NBA, lead guard, combo guard, Swiss Army knife. There's a lot of really strong outcomes for him at the role player value too. So I think even with a team like Utah, where it's like, they've said openly that, they're still in the first couple of years of their rebuild and, it hasn't really even kicked off the ground yet. That, I think Kasparas is a guy who, even if he doesn't reach his like a superstar ceiling or an all-star ceiling, can still be a guy that sticks around for a while, and makes a really strong impact in the starting lineup or, even at worst off the bench. But I see him being a pretty good player.
Yeah, I have like I have a few concerns with his handle at times, and his ability to get around guys, but when you look at dynamic playmaking guards, he's probably outside of Harper the best guy in this class.
Yeah, he's
And
not like fears or anything like that, but I think that he also is probably the strongest shooting guard prospect at the top of this draft.
easily.
Yeah. So I think that that also has to be taken into account. It's like him or Tre Johnson if you're looking for a guard with the jump shot. Otherwise it's pretty like slim pickings with how consistent Harper can be.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to like his prospect stuff, but I mean the Jazz just need something to go right. I mean, I was
Mhm.
talking to Julian before this, like 3 years of tanking, and they haven't really accomplished much yet. So that's why I thought they needed the number one pick the most here. They have a roster full of young guys that a lot of them really don't look like they're really going to work out at a high NBA level. So they need something to go right badly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that puts me up at six. I'm gonna take we just mentioned him, but I'm gonna take for Washington my favorite guard left on the board. And that's Jeremiah Fears. Um, I know he's ranked a little bit lower by some people, but this kid's 18 years old. He can get to the rim at will. He can get to the line at will. He's a really gifted playmaker. People are going to look at the turnovers. People are going to look at his shooting, and people are going to shrug their shoulders a little bit. I get that, but I think this kid's going to be really, really talented if he's given the minutes and the room to grow. And I think Washington's a great place for that.
Hmm.
Um, and I think he's the best lead guard left on my board. And I think Washington kind of needs one of those pretty desperately, especially as a young player to feed Sar and Bilal, and some of these
And
other
Bub.
pieces,
Yeah.
Bub as well. Yeah. So I think Fears would be fantastic for the Wizards, even though again, they're probably pretty pissed right now. I know we have a Wizards fan in TCH who was not happy
Yeah.
with how that lottery panned out, but I think they'd be happy if they ended up with Fears here.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
how many guys reclass in high school at the guard position then play that well in college right away?
Not a
None.
lot. I mean, the thing that I was gonna say, is that I mean, even for six, I think this is like a pick that, there are some swings that you can take in this class pretty early that still, can fit fill a position of need, like a guy like Fears can. I think that he does have some stable-ish guard traits. Turnovers and just overall efficiency will be a question, but like Zach mentioned, the kid's super young. So I still think it's like, still really fun like swing for them to take at 6 potentially.
Yeah.
I
All
like
right.
it.
7, we have, oh goodness, the New Orleans Pelicans.
I've been thinking about this one for the last few minutes. This is a weird spot for the Pelicans to be. Um, I think that at the end of the day, they probably have to go with best player available, in my opinion. I don't know if this, I think you guys probably might not agree with this, but Kon Knueppel for me is probably where I would go. Somebody that I just think is way like just better than what he showed at Duke, even though like that's probably what he's going to do in the NBA, kind of what his Duke role was. I mean, we saw it without Flagg in the ACC tournament, just how much like just how good on ball he can be and like pick and rolls and stuff like that. I like the idea of Zion running point. I think that's what he's best at, honestly. I think that's when the Pelicans are at their best. So getting a guy that isn't going to take the ball like a point guard will, but can have those reps and like you could take Maluach here, but a guy that I'm lower on the shooting upside of with Zion Williamson long term. Don't know how much I love that, even though I'm not a big Eves Missy guy. But I just think Kon Knueppel is a guy that could be a top 5 player in the class potentially if things go right.
Yeah. Me and Julian are, admittedly maybe not the biggest con believers. I'm a big fan of his game still, though. I think that, I'm sure Julian would agree that he brings a lot to the table that the modern NBA requires from the wing position. Um, it'll just be questions about how does he play defense in the NBA. I think that is going to be, he's one of those guys where it's like on day one of the NBA, you're going to kind of be able to see where he's at athletically, and figure out what strides need to be made. And it'll probably show pretty early, in his rookie year whether he's going to be a guy that, was maybe worth this top 10 pick, or maybe he should have been drafted more in like, the later lottery. But I still have faith. Like, I mean, the shooting returns could be crazy, and like you said, Zion's been a freak when he's been able to get more on ball touches. So putting a shooter around him's not a bad idea.
Yeah, the Pelicans are a weird one too in terms of this draft because they have like the combination of they tried to build around Zion this past season, had a lot of injuries, and they also have some like really exciting young talent. You got Trey Murphy, you got Herb Jones, you got Yves Missi. I know you don't like Yves Missi, Zach, but like that roster on paper looks like it could be really, really good. So it's tough to really identify, especially because everyone got hurt this year, like what the biggest need is. But I think Knippel's a pretty safe pick in that regard because he's just, he's going to shoot and you can't go wrong by picking a shooter.
They're probably not going to stop getting hurt either, by the way. Like, I mean, the we have no idea like what the Pelicans roster is gonna look like year to year. Like I think they kind of needed to get a top 4 pick here, to get like maybe another higher up option on the roster. But yeah, we'll see how the Pelicans go next year.
Yeah, I'm up with Brooklyn, and I think you got to probably go BPA here. Um, I think the Tre Johnson fit is interesting, especially if there's going to be a lot of teams gunning maybe for Cam Thomas, and you probably just maybe want to let him go to free up some cap space. Um, but I still think that there's got to be some faith that, even with some of this core, Brooklyn can turn around. I think adding a guy like Derik Queen, who's very skilled, had a great freshman year at Maryland, um, and has some like upside in terms of what he can provide shooting wise, and playmaking wise, and volume. I think this is a good chance for him maybe to be a premier guy. I'm not sure personally where they're at with Nick Claxton or some of the other bigs on the roster. But I still think Derek Queen is the best player available um, to me. Um, I mean, as part of me maybe thinks like, you could go with like Maluach if you're just trying to go with like a safer big, but I just think Queen's upside probably is more enticing to like a team like Brooklyn that just needs to add like star potential.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of need upside right now. I mean, there's maybe two guys 25 and under on that roster that really excite me, and that's Cam Thomas and Day'Ron Sharp, who might not even be like the future long-term plan of this core. Like, this team should not have had the sixth best odds this year. They got screwed with their earlier season start. It came to hurt them at the end of the day. Like, this team like needs to be horrible next year and get a top pick, or like they don't have their pick for a few years after next year, I don't think. So I think next year is maybe the last one they can control their destiny with getting odds. But yeah, I like the Queen upside a lot. Somebody who can just be a hub of an offense, kind of. I think his NBA position will be a little bit interesting. Does he stick at center, or can he develop, shooting enough to become a power forward? Kind of
I
interested in
think
your
that's
guys'
probably the
thoughts.
hope is that you can eventually play him against alongside a guy like Claxton. But if Claxton's defensive like floor just ends up being like one of those guys that you just want to keep around on your roster and you can't move on from, then I mean that'll be tough. That's where you probably don't go with a guy like Maluach or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree with that.
but yeah, I mean I think it'll be fun. It'll be a fun pick for sure. He's
Yeah,
somebody that could easily be drafted a little bit higher though, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Brooklyn needs a fun pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They need some sort of optimism, man. Speaking of a team that needs some optimism and has a roster, let's call it that. Um, I'm gonna take Khaman Maluach here. I think just he's the best player available on my board, and the Raptors really do not want another guy that needs the ball in their hands. They have way too many of those right now, as is. So drafting a dude that's gonna just be big, who's gonna just take up space, who's gonna protect the rim, who's gonna rim run, rebound the ball. Like he's a pretty simple big man, Maluach. Like he's not. He doesn't do a lot of the crazy. He's kind of like the Lively or the Misi of this year's class, in my opinion. Although Misi had a lot more ball skills, I will give him that. But the kind of like rim running, rebounding, shot blocking big of the class that like maybe can shoot it. There's a certainly well doctored video of him shooting 14 threes in a row and making them. But I think for me, Maluach kind of has to be the pick here if you're Toronto. You just can't put another ball handler or shooter or like heavy volume player out there, um, and be happy about it.
Yeah, the Raptors issue like 4 years ago was the roster was way too redundant with all these like forwards, and now it's just as redundant with like four or five guys in the starting lineup that all need the ball in their hands and all want to get to the rim or mid range. So we'll see. It's gonna be a very interesting year for the Raptors. They're one of the teams I'm more excited to watch, not because they're gonna be like awesome, but like how are they gonna navigate this? Like, are you gonna go tell Brandon Miller to go sit in the corner? Like, can we really see that happening?
Yeah, well, one of the
So
three,
somebody might
RJ,
have to go to the bench.
yeah, between RJ, Scotty, BI, Emmanuel Quick, like someone has to not shoot the ball.
Scotty Barnes, 3-point shooter.
God.
I like it pick. I like the pick. I like the fit. I think this is just like one of the kind of easier fits in the draft. You just got to add a big, take the best and most efficient big. Nice.
Yeah, pretty cut and dry on that one.
I was just looking up Tre Johnson's measurements. I didn't see what he measured today. I was curious.
What was it?
He was like 6'4.5" or whatever with like a 6'10" wingspan, which was pretty insane.
I asked that because I'm going to take him here with the Rockets pick, and I think this is a really great fit because we saw how much of an issue the half court offense was for the Rockets versus the Warriors, and there's just like not a lot of guys on the roster that are like really good shooters. So a situation where he can come into and just be a really good off-ball shooter is great, especially like with Amen Thompson probably being the long-term guy for you. Like that's what you probably want Why not have a guy who's one of the better shooters in this class, potentially join him as the future backcourt guy? Because it's not going to be Jalen Green. I've said it for like the last few years. I don't believe in that dude. Um, we'll see if Tre Johnson works out, but he's one of the better shooters in the class and just overall scores unbelievable numbers for a super tough schedule in the SEC. But yeah, just he'll be one of the guys that can actually shoot on this team, and I think he'll help them take the next step, which is going to be on the offensive end.
I have a depressing question here. Uh, do you think he gets the Reed Shepherd treatment next year?
I mean, potentially because they have way too many like prospects on the team still. They have to like make a consolidation trade probably this offseason. Like, can we really see another year of like guys like Whitmore not playing and like still remain on the roster? Like they're just like he's going to lose all of his value if that's another year of that, right? Like there's probably a move with the Rockets this offseason.
And he's a sleeping monster, dude.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these guys are just like Reed Shepherd probably could go somewhere and be semi-productive. I think a lot of people overplay how rough of a year he had. I think he shot relatively well down the stretch in his NBA minutes. So I like this pick though, regardless. But I agree with the sentiment that they do need to consolidate. And this could be an interesting maybe asset that we see them move, maybe not. I think maybe they move this asset and try to get a pick in next year's class with some of these players. You know what I mean? I think next year the top 6 or 7 picks are all guys that could be,
Awesome.
at this point, could be #1 overall picks in their own draft classes, in the foreseeable future. So I think next year's a class you want to get into the top 5 or 6 in, for sure. So it'll be interesting to see if like this is a team that has so much assets. They have a pick here in the top 10. Why not just like try and spin it up and get like one of those top lottery picks next year and dump off to guys like Washington. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like dump off Whitmore, Shepherd, 10, maybe a future pick and try and move up in next year's class or something like that.
They can't take this pick and not make a consolidation trade, is what I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Roster just doesn't hold up. Um Now I'm up again with Portland. I was thinking about this one. Um, I'm just gonna go best player available on my board, in my opinion. With this, I think Portland's in a similar spot to some of these teams where their roster's interesting. They have some guys that could be, um, you know, good players down the line. Like we've seen decent things from DeAndre and Anthony Simons, Denny Avila. We've definitely seen some potential from Shaden Sharp, and Scoot Henderson and Klingon. But I don't think there's many guys that like, jump off the roster sheet. So taking a swing here with a guy like Egor Demin, I think could be fun. Um, I I think you just need to add playmaking talent to this roster. I don't think that there's a ton of it outside of Scoot Henderson. So I like the fit. I think probably Igor would benefit from playing around maybe some better teammates. I don't think that there's a ton of talent here on this Portland team that's going to be there over the next couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see how this core changes. But I mean, I think the one weakness about Igor is probably like defense, and maybe a little bit of shooting concerns. And, I think that defense is one of the things that this Portland team probably has covered going forward. So, he can definitely add some playmaking potential.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's probably I mean, he might be the best passer in the class to me. The question is just can he score at the NBA level?
Yeah, I mean, I buy the jump shot. I don't know if you're a big believer in it. It's definitely one where you have to believe in the process over the results of late. But I buy it. I know a lot of pretty decent guys in this space buy it as well. Um, I know Julian's a little bit of a skeptic as well. But we'll see how it turns out. He's definitely going to be a guy that similar to like a GG Jackson or a Cam Whitmore is going to be interesting to see if he starts to fall out of the lottery. It'll be interesting to see how far he falls. Um, but I like this landing spot. I think this is maybe the highest he'll go. You know what I mean? Realistically, he could maybe go 5, to Utah if Utah just loves him or Washington loves him at 6. But other than that, I don't see him going much higher than this.
Yeah, I see that. I'm just an Igor skeptic, but I think if there's a place he's going to fit, Portland does make sense. But they're another team that has to figure out what the hell they're doing with some of these young guys, especially at the guard position.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the nice thing is he can play 1 through 3. I
Yeah,
mean, theoretically.
yeah.
So we'll have to see what that looks like. Obviously, I mean, if you're trying to go win now, there's guys like Rasheer Fleming, Nick Clifford, Arrow that all come into play in this range, in my opinion, that are great value. And we'll see which of those guys go here to round out our mock.
Um, Chicago, I don't think be going with any of those guys 'cause I don't think they're in a position to try and win right now. Uh, Again, I'm going to take best player on my board up the front court. Bye bye Patrick Williams. Hello Asa Newell. Um, Asa I think is going to be a stud. I don't think it's as a five. I think he's much more of a true four. I know people have talked about playing at the five because of his length. But he's just so athletic. He can make plays a little more than I think people give him credit for. He shoots the ball fine. Again, he's not like a 40% shooter right now. That's okay. Like I think, like kind of
How
Caleb
many
said with
prospects
Igor.
are at this level?
No, but with him, like the process is there. I think he'll get better. I think the defense will get better when he's playing a more natural position as a four rather than kind of like an odd five. But he's a high intensity, high effort guy on both ends of the floor as well, which I really like. So I think putting him alongside Buzelis and kind of letting those two guys grow together in their front court sounds like a really good idea for Chicago here.
I like it. I like the fit.
Yeah, I mean, uh, I like the like some of the flashes we've seen with just the shooting and like handle and touch for the offensive side of the court. And the Bulls they don't have a lot of really good young talent. Um, they could really use it. I mean, it's hilarious to me that this team found a way to like not tank after trading Levine. Um, it's brutal, but yeah, I like
Mhm.
Spig.
Right. So we got two more picks in the lottery, one of which will be, I think it's the Atlanta Hawks here.
Yep. Was going to be the Sacramento Kings. If it moved up, ends up being Atlanta. Zach, what are you thinking here?
So Atlanta's interesting because I think they're going to lose Clint Capella this offseason. I definitely think there's a need for a big. Um, and there's two guys I'm kind of looking at, Murray Boyles and then Thomas Sorber. I feel like Sorber is maybe more of what they're looking for. I'm pretty big on Sorber. I have him 12th on
He
my
measured
board.
so well, dude. His
He
his
did.
Yeah.
wingspan is like 7'3" or 7'4" or something.
Wasn't it like 7'6"?
Or something.
It
Yeah,
was
it's
something
absurd.
Yeah.
ridiculous.
It
Yeah,
was
I've got to move him up.
yeah, he was I think it was like +8 because he was like 6'9" and 3/4 without shoes, which he'll probably be playing like 6'11. And then the wingspan was like +8. So I'm a big Sorber guy. I mean, for a freshman, I thought he was a pretty unbelievable defender this year at Georgetown. And then I think there's some like actual shooting touch potential there. My favorite game from him was against Providence, where he hit like four jumpers in the first half that looked awesome. Um, but yeah, I like the passing a lot too, which I think could work super well with this team. I like the upside on both ends of the court. Um, I really hope he falls to my Timberwolves at 17. That's my dream pick, kind of. But they kind of need a big, and I think he's going to be really good on both ends in the NBA, honestly. And I think it just makes sense.
I like this pick. I definitely could see him um climbing up boards here over the next weeks. And I mean, this is a great fit for Atlanta. I mean, a team that's hopping into the lottery now. Um, and I think this is a great fit for them in terms of just taking best player available out of position of need. They need to add front court depth. And like you said, I mean, some of his playmaking instincts are pretty awesome, to say the least. And I think that he definitely surprised a lot of people with just how stable he was throughout the whole season as a freshman on defense, like you noted. Really good pick here. I'm up with San Antonio here at the back end of the lottery. Um, I think part of me um wants to take Rasheer Fleming or like Neat Clifford, um, or like shock the world with like a Arrow or something like that. Um, but then also part of me is like take Noah Sengay because he's got the most potential left on the board. Um, but I'm not going to. I'm just gonna take the safe route with Rasheer Fleming, who I think would just be a monster next to Victor Wembanyama. I mean, when you look at this roster, if you remove a lot of the players that are probably going to get phased out with age, they're built to play fast. And I don't think that there's a player in the country that scored easier in transition, in my opinion, on film or even statistically than Rasheer Fleming. Um, I think he's going to be a really, really good player in the NBA, regardless if it's as a role player or somebody who eventually reaches starting caliber. Um, Shoots the ball well for his size, has some on-ball skills at times, but just a menacing play finisher on both ends in terms of getting rebounds, blocking shots, playing in lanes, stopping on the ball, and then on offense, just like I said, it gets out in transition with a little bit of a handle, and you do not want to meet him at the rim. We'll put you in the post of the basket for sure. So, think this is a good one to round out our lottery here.
Yeah, I think that's like a perfect fit because I mean, you guys have Wembanyama, but now you have like three guards in the roster with the Dylan Harper pick as well that really need the ball. So just having a guy that plays off the ball and unbelievable cutter is one of the things that always I see when I watch him. That's where I think he scores a lot of his points. He's like 39% from three on almost 5 attempts per game too. Continuing to like put good shooters around Wembanyama is not a bad idea at all. Just maximize the spacing completely.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the future is bright for the Spurs, and I think the less of they're a team right now that like in previous Caleb, previous myself would have been like, this is like an excuse to take a swing. But I think for them, like if they stay pat in the draft, they have a chance to really like solidify their future as a franchise, especially with that last lottery pick. I mean, just however kind of things shake out. I mentioned three names that are like, there's no way there's a world where Neat Clifford, Adu Thiero, and Rasheer Fleming all get drafted before 14. There's just no universe where that happens. And even then, they'll still look at options of guys like maybe even just like take Janai Broom or take somebody that like Cedric Coward. Like, they can do something like crazy in terms of reach on a player who's just going to be a really good player in their rotation, because they already have so much talent. It'll be interesting to see. You want to scroll down a little bit, Julian, so the people can see the full draft here, the full lottery we did.
Let's see
Um,
if I can hold on a sec. Give me a sec to see if I can zoom out a little bit so we can fit more of it in the picture.
Your top right, if you go top right, you should be able to zoom out on your tab a little bit.
I kind of just forgot that the Mavericks got the first pick.
Yeah, I know, right? It's been a
I
minute
just,
here while we've been talking, but
and
to
then
round
it just,
out Cooper Flagg at one to Dallas, Dylan Harper two to San Antonio, Ace Bailey three to Philly, VJ Edgecombe four to Charlotte, Kasparas Jakucionis five to Utah. At number six, Washington took Jeremiah Fears. Number seven, New Orleans landed Kon Knueppel. At eight, the Nets swung on Derik Queen. The Raptors landed Khaman Maluach at nine. Tre Johnson ended up with Houston. At number 10, Egor Demin to Portland at 11. We had Asa Newell at 12 to Chicago. 13, we saw Atlanta take Thomas Sorber. And at 14, The Spurs rounded out the lottery with Rasheer Fleming from St. Joe's. Um, guys, got any closing notes before we sign out here?
Yeah, I'll do a quick question. Um, Anybody that you were surprised didn't go in the lottery here?
I mean, Colin Murray Boyles is probably going to shock a lot of people. I mean, I think he's somebody that if you go and you take any sort of value away from combine measurements and just general like play style and player trends, he's somebody that just goes against every single grain of conventional NBA draft prospects. So I think that he's definitely a polarizing prospect. Where some people have him as high as three because he just fits some sort of superstar outcome or star outcome that they see him reaching. Um, I think that that's probably the one for me.
Yeah, I have him like 8 on my board. So, I mean, I was considering him with the Hawks, and my argument was maybe like they have some really good positional size in the front court. I mean, just like in the forward spots,
Hmm.
and then some part of the guard spots without Trey. But I don't know the size for that. Like he measured 6'6", man. It's interesting. And then like another guy that measured pretty poorly today that I have in my top 10, and I'm probably gonna keep him there, Jace Richardson. Like I can see him slipping out of the lottery because of, stuff like that. Like he's just so small.
Yeah, no, I mean sub 6'1" is tough for him. I mean when he was being listed at like 6'3", I was definitely skeptical, but um, definitely not the outcome I think a lot of people are expecting for him. Um,
Yeah, like
so yeah,
how did VJ Edgecombe measure at 6'4" without shoes? That was a little surprising to me.
Yeah.
He actually will be 6'5" in the league, which is great for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I think has a lot of upside, in terms of just his raw basketball ability. As an athlete, he has everything that you want in terms of a quick first step, twitchy hands, dynamic aerial skills in terms of his ability to change directions and, just have some dexterity and mobility while in the air. Like he does everything that you kind of look for in those tier one athletes. So, for him to truly be like a wing is going to be great. He checks that box. I mean, I'll have to dive into more, but I really was happy as like a Duke Euro truther for over 3 years to see him measure, at 6'6.5", with like a 7 foot plus wingspan was nice. So I would have taken him probably at 14. He's probably my biggest surprise not being taken in the lottery. I'm joking. Um, we can end it off here. This was fun though. I think so all of us are still kind of just like fried from seeing Dallas get number one. It's
So
Yeah.
dumb.
just a morale
think
killer.
I
Um,
the basketball community I think is in shock right now,
yeah.
with what just happened.
I mean, back-to-back years, a team that had like sub 4% odds wins the lottery. How does that happen? Like, what are the odds of that?
Uh,
Like
Not
Apparently
point,
even likely.
not even a percent.
the odds of this draft order, Steven texted me, was 0.0114 for this top three.
Brutal. That feels
And
high.
I
That
mean,
feels
like I
high.
said, these are the three franchises that like are already set up for future success. Like did not need to land a top pick in this class. I mean, for Philly, that you guys were just happy to stay in the draft. That's all you
Pretty
guys wanted
much.
to stay in the draft. And for San Antonio, you're just happy to have two lottery picks and you're just holding your head high. And for Dallas, it's like you're just lucky that you have a pick. You know what I mean? That you're lucky that you have anything after the way that you've behaved as a franchise this season. So it's definitely an unlikely outcome. So with that, all that being said, appreciate you guys taking the time to react to this absurdity with us, and also talk, just more hoops, more hoops the better. If you want to find more of our content, and you can also find all of our personal links in the description below, the dash center dash hub.com. for more content. We have a lot of written work going up there. You know, it's almost draft season, so we'll definitely have a draft guide going up here and being announced here over the next couple weeks, and we'll have definitely a increase in the frequency of mock drafts that we're doing. And you know, I'm sure we'll have like a off season, you know, a mock off season like we've done the past couple of years. You know, with Steven. So there's a lot of stuff, and you're not going to want to miss it. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, follow us everywhere, and we're out.